Hey everybody, welcome back to another news roundup. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Excuse me if I sound congested again. It's just went out to the beach for a few days, went for a nice swell that was coming out. So excuse me if my voice seems a little bit deeper than usual. Um, but we're back with another news roundup, and also hope you guys are enjoying the plethora of content lately. Just been putting out a lot more content than per usual, so hope you guys are enjoying that. But to keep this intro short, let's just dive right on in. So the first story that we have for this week is revolving around James Dean. Now, if you remember, there actually was a James Dean film in development a long time ago, and that was going to be utilizing AI technology and other factors, and a lot of people at the time, rightfully so, were against the film, and that film never came to be. Well, apparently there is something of a biopic coming out of James Dean, not involving AI technology, thankfully, but it is currently seeking financing for an adaptation based on William Bass's memoir entitled "Surviving James Dean." Now, Guy Guido, which I believe, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, who's notably directed a documentary called Madonna and the Breakfast Club back in 2019. He is currently seeking financing for this adaptation based on the book, as I mentioned, which details, as the film would, the alleged relationship between the author, that being William Bass, and James Dean, as they met at UCLA up to Dean's untimely death and the author's own wrestling with his sexual identity and the wrestling of his grief of the passing of a quote unquote friend during their college time together, their time in college together. So the film is essentially right now in concept stages, and is seeking out buyers to help finance the project. Now, um, sorry, my cat just literally just jumped up. Sorry. Um, Now, on the literal of what's written, with the additional understanding of the multiple accounts of James Dean's sexuality, like if you do your own research, there seems to be a lot of credibility towards the idea that James Dean was probably, and to make sense, just bi. It sounds like that was, who he was, but in terms of just the pitch, the pitch for this quote unquote biopic, it sounds more or less like Priscilla, in that we use a famous figure and place them in the background as our subject, as a part of that background story. In essence, it's not a biopic of James Dean. It's a biopic of this author. So they're just essentially just using James Dean as a background element, and the author story is going to take priority. Um, and I have to say, based on my research of this author and his credibility to his own claims of having a sexual experience with James Dean, I really don't think this person deserves any more attention than they already have. Because this man has made a career of writing and exploiting his supposed friend over the years and profiting off of it. This is not the first book that he's written about James Dean. He's written another one a few years after James Dean's unfortunate passing, and then was making remarks about his own, James Dean's funeral, saying how it was this and that, and then putting out this book where then he talks about his own sexuality. Just using his friend's fame as a crutch to give him fame as well. All done after his supposed friend died, by the way. All this, comes about, all the books, all this fame, all this comes out after his friend died, by the way. And it's only because he comes out about his own sexuality that there's a cushion to his actions and his quote unquote career. Yeah, in my eyes, this man is a cunt. Regardless of how credible his information is, the fact is that any good friend would respect the privacy of that person's family. And, especially if they had any like sexual encounters or had any like romantic whatevers, you would think that they would, keep that stuff private. But, I'd personally want a biopic of James Dean. Like, I would want to see a biopic about his own upbringings, but perhaps commenting on his sexuality if there is credible sources out there, which to my limited research, there appears to be some in books and documentations potentially. That would be more interesting. This is not that. This is a biopic about William Bass, and William Bass does not deserve any more attention. I really, really don't think so. So yeah, you're essentially getting Priscilla, but except not Elvis Presley. It's now James Dean. So, and changing it from the point of a female and about their isolative feelings within a relationship, it is now about a masculine figure wrestling with their sexual identity. So yeah. I just don't think this man deserves any more attention than he already does. It's just kind of disgusting of what he's done to his friend and really exploiting him. So yeah. So those are my 2 cents on that. Alrighty, and the big story for this week, obviously, is of course, let's talk about DanielDay Lewis. Now, there were some sources, specifically the New York Post, that were bringing up photos that potentially were of DanielDay Lewis back on set, and at the time there wasn't any sources to back that up, and I was even saying that I don't think that that's necessarily true, but according to reputable outlets that came out hours later after the New York Post did what they did, including Variety and all this stuff, DanielDay Lewis, who is considered one of the greatest performers of this generation and of all time to some people, is officially returning to acting by starring as the lead in his son's feature debut. Ronan Day Lewis is his name, entitled Anemone, I think that's how you say the name, which will explore dynamics between brothers, sons, and fathers, essentially an exploration within family dynamics. It is currently in production. There's photos to back that up, so it's currently in production, being financed by Focus Features and Plan B, who they've had previous work with DanielDay Lewis. Co-written by both Ronan Day Lewis and DanielDay Lewis. So a father and son collaboration, really a passion project. Co-starring Sean Bean, Samantha Morton, Samuel Bottomley, and Safia Oakland Green. Yeah. So, I mean, DanielDay Lewis, of course, has retired multiple times during his career. Most recently, of course, being back in 2017 after starring in Paul Thomas Anderson's Phantom Thread, which I absolutely love. I thought he was terrific in that. I thought really poetic in terms of a career ending. There's just, there's some real poetry in just the understanding of Reynolds Woodcock and correlating that to DanielDay Lewis and his decisions to leave. I felt that was kind of poetic of an end of a career. So, but he's back. He is back once again, and man, I just like, a part of me is, of course, interested to see what this new project of his is, and ultimately, how he is in it, because of course we know him as a method actor, and he is, very involved with his processes. Sometimes takes years to even find his characters. Like Abraham Lincoln took him years. There's Phantom Thread also took him a few years. Like, he's very, very selective with his roles because it takes so much out of him to get into his characters. So it makes me curious to know if this has been something in development in his circle, his family, for quite some time, or was this like something recent and he just found some excuse of some sorts to just get back into it. So, or if he's maybe doing his son a favor, I don't know, any idea. But I just hate seeing good things potentially go to waste. I mean, he's a tremendously talented performer, and he goes, like I said, beyond the scope of reason to inhabit his roles, which in the reasoning for his leave, for why he retired most recently, was because he addressed about Great Depression that would come from, inhabiting these roles for such a long time and then having to leave them afterwards. it's an adoption within his own mindset, and it affects the psyche. I'm not saying I can relate to that, but I can totally, I guess I could in some way sympathize with that because of, I've discussed before about just my own personal experiences with method acting and stuff like that. I can kind of sort of relate to the psychological effects of having to involve yourself in that capacity. And I think that him stepping away ultimately was a really bold statement on the effects of method acting. And I think that it kind of, gave a light on how it can really damage an individual or how it can affect a person in such a great way. So for him to return in any capacity, I think is just to feed that desire again. And like, it's like any other addiction. Like at some point, like you'd think after 7 years that the desire would be managed at this point, you know? As much as I believe to him to be possibly the greatest performer in the modern era, that also comes with him leaving. Leaving while you're still good, for his sake and for his legacy. I think Phantom Thread again is just a great end, a great poetic end for his career. So, I mean, of course, I'm immediately interested to see how this project shapes, especially with him at the center of it. But I acknowledge that it's better left alone than to continue. Just as him as a performer, I say just leave this behind. Because now I worry about the value of his talent, if that will degrade over time. So it's completely understanding considering who's at the helm. Like I said, it's a son and father collaboration, so I get ultimately the persuasive thing there. I just would be firm on my decision if I was a father. I wouldn't compensate, for that, because ultimately I'm allowing myself to just get wrapped up in it again. So I mean, yes, it is nice to see him back, but I don't like, ultimately, I worry about what that means moving forward and how it might affect him generally as a performer if he still will be delivering. I also just don't think that it's healthy. Just to be frank, I just don't think it's healthy for him to be doing this. I mean, generally, for anybody who has involved themselves in method acting, you should stay away from it. But I just think it's just not a healthy habit to get back into. So it's as an audience member, it is obviously to some extent exciting, but it's also a bit unfortunate when you consider what it is that he does and how it affects him. So I'm interested, but I'm also like, I wish that he wasn't for his own sake. So. Alrighty, let's talk about Rust. Rust, of course, we've talked about on this channel plenty of times. We've talked about, of course, Alec Baldwin and the trial just being just completely just butchered. And, Alec Baldwin was, from what it seemed like in the trial, it looked like he would have gotten guilty or at least was heading towards a verdict of that nature. And before we got any closer to that, there was issues within documentation and with certain evidence being withheld from, I believe it was the defense, and strange things happening after that. We discussed how like prosecution was trying to file against the judge or something like that, and the judge was just like, oh no, you don't have the number, the page count, so we can't take this. But she doesn't disregard any of the stuff that's mentioned, about being this and that. So, but apparently, the film is going to be coming out. There is a premiere date. It will be coming out sometime in November. From my research, I could be wrong. It will be having its world premiere at the Cambridge Film Festival. And after the screening is held, a Q&A will be conducted with the filmmaker, Joel Schauza, I think that's how you say his name, and the second cinematographer, Bianca Klein, who came on board, of course, after the tragic passing of Helena Hutchins. as they'll discuss the troubling history surrounding the production and, of course, uh, the role of women in cinematography, and in so probably honoring Helena Hutchins. Um, Here's the thing. In the state of which the film is in now, there's no reason to be releasing it. There's no sincerity, no real thoughtfulness, no real consideration of the understanding of its release. At this point, it's just exploiting this victim of a shooting with the hopes for it to gain traction and manipulate the idea of recognizing her involvement, which is now completely a mystery as to the capacity of how much her footage is served into the final cut, when you now have another cinematographer taking up her duties. Like, who's to say they didn't do reshoots or anything like that? Like, yeah, if it was already in the can, like if it was that the filming was indeed complete and all that footage that would have been shown would be purely that of Helena's work, it'd be more understanding in preserving her legacy at that point. But currently, in the state that it's in, it's just disgusting. It's just disgusting that this is coming out. This should have been canceled and moved on from a long time ago. I honestly and also the family, I heard, is like involved in some capacity as producers, which is very weird. I would think you would want to leave this alone. Yeah, like I said, if it was purely Helena's work, if it was all those shots that are taken, all the framing, all that, if that was Helena's work, purely Helena's work, and she was the sole cinematographer on this, I can understand a little bit more. But now with another person involved, it's no longer purely Helena's work. To which then I ask, why release that at all? Why? And I know why. It's because there is a chance to profit. There's a chance to gain traction. It's not purely because they want to honor Helena Hutchins. They may think that they are doing so, but they're really not doing so. But those are my thoughts on that. I think that this is just wrong, and it should not be involved, or it should not be released in any capacity, if you ask me. Should have been canceled a long time ago. But it's going to come out. I don't see how any distributor here in the U.S. is going to pick it up. So it's probably going to end up in the foreign market, primarily fleet in the foreign market. Or maybe Lionsgate will pick it up, because they love picking up just disasters. Apparently so, for no apparent reason. But yeah. No, I just all around, I think this is just ridiculous that that the film is complete now and being released. It's just stupid, just really stupid. So, but yeah, let's move on. Alrighty, we've got a couple of trailers to discuss for today. We've got 3 specifically, so let's just get right into it. So the first one we're going to talk about is the official trailer for Juror number 2 is officially out. We talked about this last week, I believe, or a couple of news roundups ago. This is Clint Eastwood's latest film. This is starring Nicholas Hoult, as well as J.K. Simmons, Toni Collette, and Zoe Dutch. It has a release date for a limited run on November 1st. I couldn't see any worldwide release for it, so I'm not sure what's happening there. But trailer is out, and man, I gotta say, I'm fairly interested, and I'm very surprised by the general quality, because once again, you have to consider Clint Eastwood here. He is currently 94 years old. 94 years old. And the fact that he is still able to produce intriguing approaches in his stories, with the fact that there is still a level of intrigue embedded into this, or like when you watch the trailer, it's evident. It's really quite astonishing. Now, it's got more in line with his work, specifically The Mule, in that it has this moral gray area, or this like, there's this just this undertone to it that really reminds me of that of the Mule. Um, I really thought it would be inspired by 12 Angry Men, just based off of the synopsis that I heard. Um, but no, it seems to be doing something a bit more unique. The only cracks I can notice, oh, sorry, I hit my mic. The only cracks I can notice is to do with the ensemble, which appeared to be a bit lackluster, if you ask me. They don't seem as passionate or as like, as pure, as genuine. However, I'm I'm digging the atmosphere, the setup. A man who potentially committed a crime is going on jury duty for that very crime he may or may not have committed. That can go in interesting ways. It can, however, go also sideways. It can go either way depending on the execution. The supplying of information from the trailer suggests that he did it, or is at least involved in some capacity. But I hope that the movie is able to insert doubt in the viewer, because if it doesn't, then it's really gonna drag if it's not able to do so. But other than that, I'm fairly interested. I'll be on the lookout for it. Hopefully, it comes out here. Um, I don't know why it's just getting a limited release right now. Maybe for awards contention or something. I don't know, but yeah, Eastwood still going strong. Really, still going strong, and potentially for his final film, because we're I think it's not speaking hyperbole or whatever, saying that this is probably his last film. For potentially his final film, looks promising. Looks fairly promising. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But alrighty, let's get into the next trailer. Sorry, I hit my mouse. I've just been hitting a bunch of stuff right now. But let's get into our next trailer. Next trailer is going to be Babygirl. This is a form of erotica. At least it thinks to be. This is being written and directed by Helena Regin, who notably directed a film called Bodies, 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 which I have seen and did not like. This stars Nicole Kidman, Harris Dickinson, and Antonio Banderas, and this has a worldwide release for Christmas Day 2024. So I gotta say, from based on what I saw in the trailer, nothing about this situation is inherently sexy. It's this incredibly ignorant idea of how toxicity breeds sexual content, and it really doesn't, like, at all. In statements like the request that may perhaps qualify, in the like flirtatious, just general claim, maybe, but that's being like kind of thin in that point. Like, to represent it in this way, there's nothing about this scenario that's sincerely erotic, because erotica is basically just porn. We've talked about this before, where the genre of eroticas are basically just well-crafted porn. You have porn, which is just people fucking, and in this, it's just more artistically, satisfying than what you come to find in porn. And if this is basically if this is basically these two having sex ad nauseum, to which inadvertently is extremely exploitive, by the way, because why would these two actors agree to do such a thing? I don't know. I get the whole like, I'm not ashamed of my body sort of thing, but it's like, I don't think the whole world needs to see your body, But whatever. I never get that point at all in our current society, but whatever. But like, if it basically is these two having sex ad nauseum, then yeah, it would qualify being an erotica, because that's the true definition of this genre. The artsy part is insubstantial in that type of story. But this is essentially commenting on male toxicity within sexual desire, basically, which doesn't hold much water when our main character, Nicole Kidman, is willing to go through with this and go on with his demands to satisfy her own needs, which is to satisfy her hormones and stuff like that. Like, I'll put it like this. There's a layer of comedy that I thought was being built in the trailer, but the more I think about it, the more I believe it comes from a lack of sincerity. Like, I just can't take this premise seriously. Mainly on what they're looking to comment on. I think that's what's, well, turning me off from it. There's just nothing sexy or frankly too interesting here. Like, why should I care for someone cheating on their husband or vice versa? Like, why? What's the great rich commentary that can be found from such apparent toxicity? And how in turn can you make that sexy? Like, it's just gross. It's really just gross. So I get it's the trendy thing to subvert, the expectation, or to try to do something that is, yeah, basically subversive. But this is just more gross than interesting. I don't care about the age gap. It's like, whatever. Like, fine. I'm just more grossed out by just what they're trying to comment on and ultimately using as fuel in terms of fertilizing sexual tension or sexual, desire. It's just not there. It's just something very ignorant and toxic in the filmmaking and in story. So yeah, I'm not interested in this. I just don't see anything that great in this. So. All right, last trailer we're going to discuss is for a film called Betterman. This is a Robbie Williams biopic, which also is starring Robbie Williams, but he's doing the voice work as they're going for a little bit of a, again, similar to Babygirl, subverting the expectations on biographical tellings, which is basically providing a gimmick in the form of an ape to visually illustrate their stories. Like the upcoming film Piece by Piece as an example, where they tell Pharrell Williams' story through Lego, So, yeah, that's what we got here. Juno Davis is providing the motion capture work. And like I said, Robbie Williams is doing the voice. So it's two separate people doing two separate things. That seems needlessly complicated to have two individuals involved in the motion capture process. Either have that actor do the voice, like the one who's in the suit, like to have Juno Davis do the voice stuff as well, or get Robbie Williams into a motion capture suit. Like, I just don't know why you have to split the difference, but anyways. This has a release date, I forgot to mention, this is co-written and directed by Michael Gracie, who most notably directed The Greatest Showman, which I don't remember much of. This has a release date of Christmas Day on a limited run, but it'll have a worldwide release on January 17th, 2025. So, based on what I saw, I'm more interested by the work that went behind the motion capture. I'm curious if Weta was involved, because the look of the ape is very apparently so taking inspiration from Planet of the Apes. It's not great looking, like generally by quality, but definitely inspired by that. Which makes me wonder if they're not involved. If Weta is not involved in this process, I'm wondering if they can open up a lawsuit potentially because of the likeness to their models. Like, it looks fairly uncanny. I mean, quality wise, that's it's not of the same quality at all. But the likeness is definitely there. So, I mean, we'll see about that. But, yeah, I know nothing about the singer, nor really based on the trailer will there be much of anything that's really interesting that doesn't just say the same old shit that I've heard time and time again about singers coming up in the industry. They got caught up in the fame, they rediscover their roots, they try to be true to themselves. I mean, like, it's the whole gimmick of the ape itself. It's the whole gimmick within this new trend that's now being built within subverting the biographical type of storytelling. It's just utilizing a visual element to represent an eternal quality about these people with piece by piece. There's a emphasis on, about childhood and about this and that. With Betterman, it's a lot to do about his primal side and a lot about maybe his aggression. I don't know, but it's to illustrate that sort of thing. But the mechanics embedded into that structure, storytelling, I wouldn't be surprised if it just tells me the same old shit that I've heard time and time again about singers. So, from what I read, there's potentially some extreme circumstances this visual element may partake in. That's where I worry about what this gimmick may illustrate. Like, I don't want to see a monkey having sex with a human or like doing drugs and stuff like that. I'm just saying I don't want that. It's probably gonna go that way, let's be honest. But and and honestly, if that would even sustain a feature runtime, like this, like you having this gimmick, I just don't know if it can sustain a feature runtime. Apparently, it's a long movie too, so I don't know. I'm a little bit more curious, cautiously curious. I'll just kind of wait and see. I know there's some people who have seen it already, but I mean, I'll wait till general audience has gotten a hold of it because it's already made a few rounds in the film festival world, but yeah. So I'll kind of wait on this. We'll see. I generally, at the moment, I don't really care, but I have like a little bit of curiosity. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So. But yeah, those are my thoughts for this week, guys. Those are all the little bits for the news roundup this week. Sorry if I seem a little more just laid back, just shooting the shit. But you guys know your thoughts on all these topics, your thoughts on DanielDay Lewis officially returning to acting. That's the big story this week. Your thoughts on Rust finally having a world premiere, or just premiering in general. Thoughts on these trailers. Have you guys seen Betterman? There's been some reviews already out. So, I mean, if you guys have seen Betterman, let me know. I know Babygirl is also seen. I don't know. It already premiered too. If you guys have seen that, let me know your thoughts on that. But yeah, let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.